So now we're continuing with the third part of our pcard audit using IDEA software. Here I have the audit program up on the screen here, and we've done the first 4 steps, and now we're going to work on the rest of the steps today. So the next thing they want to know is how many cardholders used their card during the period. And I have IDEA open here, and so I closed all the files so that I could be sure I'm not accidentally performing an action on the wrong file. But I'm going to go ahead and open my January through April transaction file because that's the one I want to use. And I'm going to go up here to my analysis tab and then summarization. And what I want to do is summarize by cardholder. And that's going to tell me how many cardholders there are and the number of transactions or the document amount for them, which is actually going to help me on my next audit step. So I can summarize even by other qualities, not just cardholder, but I just want the dollar amount by cardholder here. And then I'm not going to do any special filtering. I could do that with the criteria, but that's it. And I've been renaming them once I created them, but if you wanted to name them as we go, we can put here summary by cardholder, something like that. And then you won't have to rename them once it creates that new file. Notice that it creates a child under the parent here. And of course, if you don't like it, you can always delete it and try it again. But let's see what we have here. We have 222 records, so it looks like we have 222 cardholders. And I could have noticed that up here from just the number of records in the file that we summarized. And then if you click at the top here, it will sort. I can double click and it'll start with the greatest number and go down to the least number. And the same thing with document. If I sort, I can get the smallest, then I sort again, I get the largest. And so you can see that the largest dollar amount is not generally the most active card user. So the most active card user, the number of times they use the card is different than the total dollar amount charged. So let's go back to our audit program and see what it is they wanted us to do. So how many cardholders were during the period? There were 222 cardholders. Who were the top 5 users? And so they don't indicate whether that's top 5 in terms of volume or top 5 in terms of dollar amount. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to export this. If you can remember going back up here to File and then Export, and then exporting in the version of Excel that you wanted. And then you, through the breadcrumbs, go find your folder and save it there. I'm not going to do it right now, but you could do that. And then you pull that data into your audit program file by creating another tab back here, the way we did in the earlier Excel demo. So we're going to, I'm going to import this, and then I can summarize in my report both the greatest number of activity and the highest dollar amount, top 5 under both criteria, so that whichever one the reader is interested in, they can certainly do that. All right, let me show you how to determine if cardholders have multiple cards. I'm going to close this because if I don't close this, it's going to look into this file to find, and I want to go back to my original data set. And I'm going to go under analysis, and I'm going to go under duplicate key because I want to find any card number that has more than one name. Excuse me, that would be one cardholder, 2 names. I actually want one name with more than one card. Okay, so I'm going to look exclusion. So I don't want to see when there's a one-to-one relationship between cardholder name and card number. I only want to see when there's more than one number associated with a particular name. So cardholder, and then I want to know when there's a different card number. So if there's more than one card number associated with that cardholder's name, I would like to see that, and then hit OK. So it looks like Glenn has 2 different cardholders, cards, Trish has 2 different cards, and Wendy has 5. Now, it could be that because of Wendy's job as the secretary to the president, she has a card for each of the 5 departments. That's not necessarily that you found fraud, but what you want to do is report it so that if Wendy's not supposed to have 5 cards, you have the data. So I would go up here to File Export. I would export this into an Excel file. I would then move a copy of that data into a tab behind my audit program, and then I would say, C, tab C for top users, and this probably would be C, tab D for 3 employees with multiple cards, something. And then looking for amounts above 2,500. So I'm going to close this and go back to my original data set. We can just sort here. And so you can immediately go down and look at anything over 2,500. And it may be that you want to look at things that are close to 2,500. I don't see any $24.99, $24.99 or something like that, duplicates where it looks like somebody's, well, here's one that might be where they're putting through 3 charges. Can you see that? All under the 2,500. That could be a $7,000 transaction that they're trying to get under the wire here by making it below 2,500. So that you may wish to provide a schedule that shows everything above 2,000 and highlight this one, for instance, where you have these 3 charges all very close to the upper limit, making you wonder. They're on different dates, so and they're not all the same person, so maybe that's not a problem, but they would have the data. So you could export this and then just sort by the dollar amount in Excel and cut off wherever it is judgmentally you think you should cut off. There's also quite a few transactions right at the 2,500, and when there's duplicates, especially on the same day, it makes you wonder if there's something up with that this was really a 5,000 charge that they split into 2 in order to try to not get noticed and be under. You got another one up here, Blackwell. These were at least 2 different dates, but the ones that were the same date and the same person, you do have to wonder. Might be okay, but maybe not. Here's Beacon Journal, again, on the same day, split, that same employee splitting, so that's a little bit suspicious. You could bring that to the attention of the person reading your audit report. So you could write something like that in there. And then you're going to write the memo. You want to write the memo in Word, and you want to import it on a separate sheet here so that it has nice professional formatting. I'm not sure why this was red, but we can change that back to black ink. So I clipped a couple of sample memos, not because I want you to copy them, but because you can see how some prior students organized their memos. So let's just have a peek. This one organized the memos by sort of topics, and there was an introduction here. And then this one sorted it by controls, by the most serious to the least serious. This student summarized at the beginning and indicated of the 5 controls that had violations. Some of them were more important than others, so that was a nice twist. This particular student categorized by the types of controls and then gave a report on that. Notice some of them, all of them had sort of a bulleting or a numbering, organizing theme, which was very helpful. So there are a lot of differences across them, but there's some similarities, so you can sort of get the idea. All of them are one page. There's no need to be longer than one page, and bullets are fine. But your opening paragraph should be summarizing what we found. So we have found a lot of violations. So that first opening sentence shouldn't be, we've looked at your controls and here's our report. You want to start off with your conclusion. Your first sentence should summarize it. So it should be something like, some percentage of the transactions had problems. And you could probably figure out how to calculate that percent. Or you can say 5 of the 8, or however many controls there are, had serious violations, or 3 of the 8 had serious violations and 3 had less serious violations, something like that. So you want to digest what this is and not just mechanically give them the data that we extracted from an idea without having thought through what it means that these things were violated. What are the serious ones that require immediate follow-up, and which ones are the less serious and maybe aren't as urgent for them to follow up, and then refer them to the audit program and to the tabs to get more detail to be able to take the action that they need. You've not been asked to fix the internal controls, but as an internal control auditor, you might make recommendations. But in this case, we found that the controls surrounding the pcard are just not working. It's not that they're bad controls, they're just not working. And so that doesn't necessarily require you to redesign the controls, but just to find a way to have these transactions rejected at the vendor's location rather than go through and then be found later. That would be a preventative rather than a detective control. If you were doing this with a live organization, you would probably indicate at the end of this laundry list of violations and your analysis about which were serious and less serious, you would indicate we'll be back in 4 months to retest. If you have any questions about how to implement the controls that as they were designed, contact us or something like that. Because the controls as designed are fine. They're just not working. They're just not implemented correctly, and they're just not being followed. So sometimes students spend a lot of time trying to redesign the controls, and that's not necessary here. We need the controls as designed to work. And so you would indicate that because of the severeness of the violations, you would probably come back relatively soon, not in 2 years, but in several months, to recheck and make sure that the person in charge of the pcards has gotten this thing under control. So don't forget that as you import your various downloads from IDEA in the other tabs, to make the column headings in everyday language and to format them professionally. You can also make a summary schedule where you summarize them, and then you can import that as a table into your memo if you'd rather do that than bullets or listing. That's also been done very nicely by prior students. So, hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you have any questions.